Carpenter with 4 fouls. Dixon, pump, double pump, block. Dixon gets it back. To the shoot, lets it go. And out.
He's physical, he can post you up, but he has a real sense defensively. Marcus Lawrence with the 3. Or, you know what you're supposed to do, but there are times instinctively you have to do what you have to do. 5 to shoot, tell me not to force it.
When you're hot, you're hot. 51% of Nebraska's points this year have come from points in the paint, so they're right in that range again today. Tominaga lost that one on the way up. It was tipped, gets it back. 30 for 30.
We did not take a step back, man. We made so many in-game adjustments, man. We played together, so we did it on defense, bro. We stopped the boys, bro. We got to keep that going for the rest of the season. We cannot let up.
Good morning, everybody. Monday morning here on Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. He's Damon Benning. I'm Andrew Rogers. Welcome to the show this week. 590 ESPN Omaha, 1480 ESPN Lincoln, live on Twitter, live on YouTube, as we are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. What are you doing this morning? Are you drinking a cup of coffee? Maybe the official coffee of Coffee and Cream. That's the Beanery. If you're not, head over to one of their 4 locations, Gretna, Papillion, Ashland. And how about that new location, which they opened up, or which they opened last October, I should say. And that's off 168th and Giles. Or if you're not drinking coffee this morning, is it 5 o'clock somewhere where you are? Are you drinking an Acres Ale by chance this early in the morning? If so, you are an absolute menace.
Well, we don't want to judge. There's third shifts.
I'm just saying, you are a menace.
It's third shift.
Not for me. It's first shift for me.
What if it's third shift? They just get off and have a beer.
Third shift.
Yeah.
Can you imagine
late
having
night.
3 shifts?
No, late night, overnight. Is something wrong with you? Like those people are just getting off
the
work.
night shift.
Man. 8-hour day. I don't know if you could do division, but 24 divided by 3 is 8.
Carry
the third
2.
shift. Jamie would be proud.
Well, Acres Ale's brewed with Nebraska corn, so I know that's what they're drinking. Crisp and clean with a light, refreshing flavor. So it's either coffee or beer this morning, and that's how we roll on Coffee and Cream.
I almost want to call him Nelson, the guy that used to do the 7-Up commercials, crisp and clean, no caffeine. Remember the guy that was in Boomerang? He did the bad.
Oh, I can't forget that guy.
He did the he was left unsupervised because Marcus was in his feelings, so he made kind of a terrible commercial with Strawn J. Do you know the guy that I'm talking about?
Nope. Not one bit.
It's a lot of fun. Glad I went through all that.
Well, I was just trying to let you paint the picture. Maybe I could remember.
Like Bob Ross.
I know who that is.
Yes, thank the Lord.
I do know who Bob Ross is.
Wowzer. I think I'm going to have a drink to that.
Yeah, well, good. Acres Ale maybe over there.
How was your birthday weekend?
It was good, man. Birthday was good. That was Saturday. We went to the golf simulator bar up the road here.
Yeah.
Spent about 4 hours hitting
Golf and Beyond?
balls into
Or Beyond Golf?
Beyond Golf, yep. Hitting some golf balls into a screen, watching the Indiana-Purdue game, which was a wild one. And then
do you have a lot of fun doing that? I watched. So full disclosure, had a couple of breakfasts there. They have very good brunch.
Good brunch, really good brunch.
And I like because you can kind of play peekaboo.
They have bottomless mimosas too. One of the days.
They do. You can play peekaboo and kind of see what's going on in the kitchen and stuff. And I watched some guys. I mean, it's 11:15 on a Sunday. I mean, just hammering balls. Guys breaking sweats, and I'm just like, I wonder, is it accurate? Do you feel like it's accurate? Do you say to yourself, well, that felt like 209?
No. So on average, I probably drive 260.
Yeah.
Like
do you know what 260 feels like? Is the simulator simulating 260?
If it goes straight, I know what 260 feels like. There are so many shots that I take. Like I hit a 60 degree there, and I hit it 110.
Wedge?
Yeah, 60 degree wedge.
Okay.
I hit it 110. And I'm like, there's no way I hit a 60 degree.
So like during breaks and stuff,
maybe 60, 70 yards.
When you're standing around stretching, you almost inevitably take a golf swing. Almost always.
Mm-hmm. Oh, just now.
Yeah.
I just kind of walk around. I'm like the if you made like a TikTok of your significant other, which I know like a lot of girls have done before, and it's like, hey, just watch my husband always like the game never stops.
Yeah.
And they're like in Target.
Is that you?
Oh yeah, that's me.
Oh.
Because I see something that makes me think of, ooh, may I practice golf?
Like Tony Romo, do you need an intervention?
No, but I like Tony Romo. I can hit it off the deck.
Wasn't it funny on Friday? And it was all after the show because I was at the barber shop. So it's probably 11:30, 11:45. And I was like, oh, John Oran and some guys were reporting CBS making pit stops out to Romo's house just to make sure, hey, let's go to dinner and talk about
hey, how'd this year go?
Like what's going on. Do you know what I wonder though? And I mean, we don't have to spend a ton of time talking about it. I wonder if Nance told. You remember last week I was like, man, Nance must be a saint.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember?
I do remember that vividly.
It's like maybe Nance isn't as cool as we thought. Maybe Nance is like, gosh, you know what? I don't feel like this guy prepares very well. I'm gonna go ahead and tell. And CBS is like, hey, Tony, next year we have the Super Bowl. Button it up.
Well, and think about who you'd rather lose. Tony Romo or Jim Nance.
And let's not fail to mention when you pulled his salary up the other day.
Couldn't believe it.
18 million.
Could not believe how much money he got paid.
Why do we pay so much for those guys? That's a lot, man. That's a ton.
What was his like salary halfway through his career in the NFL? Like I bet it was probably around 20 million.
I don't know.
Is that too high to guess from when he played?
Could be a big one. Big play, Jim. No. So I just wondered if you needed an intervention. Although CBS is not calling it an intervention. They meet with their talent regularly to talk. How about a beer?
Yeah, but let's just sit down and have a little chat. We did a little chatting at dinner too on Saturday night. Went to Osaka, which is right down the road from Hale Varsity
next door.
Club. And let's just say I had a Seinfeld moment.
Really?
When I walked into this place.
Did you need a reservation?
It was packed.
Stop it.
It was. Let me tell you how busy it was, DB. So we walk in 6:55, reservation at 7. Always early. Always have to be a little bit early. Hey, reservation. It's like, what's the name? Andrew. Andrew, at 7, you got it. And like, I had to walk through a flood of people. Like, I felt like, is it Moses that parts the seas? Like, I felt like him.
Did you have an Aaron help you with the staff?
Nice. And
man,
I get up
man,
there,
what a great game.
And he goes, all right, it's probably going to be like 20, 30 minutes. I kind of like shook my head a little bit. And I looked back at him and I said, but I have a reservation.
Here we go.
At 7.
Here we go.
And he's like, yeah, but you have a big party and like some people are still eating. And I'm like, well, like, why are you? Why aren't the tables cleared for my reservation at 7?
What do you do reservations for?
And so like I thought about the moment in Seinfeld when he rents the car and he like walks up and he's like, I'm like, do you know like what a reservation is? I think I know what a reservation is. I don't think you do. If you had a reservation, my table would be ready.
Is you like a small car? I have a compact.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's not what the reservation.
I'm like, you know how to take the reservation. You just don't know how to hold the reservation.
That is pretty good. A reenactment.
And really, that's the most important part of the reservation, the holding. And then he's like, anybody can just take them. Can you imagine if I did that in Osaka? Anybody can just take them. No, so I wanted to say I had a Seinfeld moment because, you know, not to say that my life's a sitcom, even though sometimes it feels like it is. I just casually kept my mouth shut and walked over to the bar. Because like right when you walk in, the bar's to your left.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time I was like talking myself up like, oh, it's 7:30 rolls around. That's when I'm going to throw hands because I'm starving at this point. So Ashley, I mean, she was
Mary Kate and
she was even hungrier than I was.
Yeah.
And she would walk up like every 10 minutes asking like where the table was.
Is she she a principal person? Like,
When she's hungry.
it's the principle of the matter. Oh, so she does get hangry, huh?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So you're 15 minutes in.
So we're 15 minutes in. I'm standing by the bar, and then room opens up right next to the hostess stand, and I take my spot right there because I'm like.
Did they say reservations for Rogers, or did you just go?
No, I had a reservation.
No, like did they come get you?
Oh, they came and got me.
Okay.
Yeah, because everybody was.
I thought with the way you just said that, I was like, okay, so you saw some people leave, so you just ran and sat down.
Oh no, at the bar.
Okay.
So the bar is like right next to the hostess stand, and so I'm standing there, and I'm texting you. It's like 7:29 because I'm like, you would not believe what I'm going through right now. Because all last week you were like, I mean, you don't need a reservation. Like, if you want to play it safe, like I get a reservation.
Yeah.
And I'm a guy that likes to play it safe. So I'm like, I'm going to do that. And I mean, if I had 10 people and showed up at Osaka, we wouldn't have sat down.
I didn't realize it was 10.
So, yeah, maybe if it was just 2.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking. And good on you, too, because I knew you had some buddies in town, but I'm not sure. Maybe I would. I don't know how many people I would share my birthday experience with. Like, to go eat dinner, because I don't like to talk while I eat.
Right. And we didn't really do a lot of talking over there. We were just scarfing. By now it's 8:00 while we're eating.
And I realized, like, you catch up with the fam during the course of the day, but outside of that, I don't like a lot of extracurricular while I'm eating.
But I'll tell you what, man, before we got seated, it's like 7:29. I'm in mid-text to you because I showed it to like everybody else there. I'm like, this is the guy I was about to text. And I'm halfway through the text. I'm like, DB, Monday's going to be a thriller. Osaka's not going to hear the end of it.
Oh, Lord.
And right as I'm about to text, Osaka's not going to hear the end of it. Rogers, 10. I'm like, you got so lucky. And I started backspacing on your text.
Yeah. So was it since you're busy, upset with them, would you like to say something good? Since I'm sure they'll be walking next door by the time.
No, the food was awesome. Hibachi is so good.
Yeah,
so good.
He got buckets. I still can't believe he brought a gun to the locker room in an NBA game. But outside of that, hibachi was great.
Yeah, you texted me that.
Laughing. Hibachi. Hey, so what did you go with?
Steak and scallops.
Are you? Please tell me you're not a scallops person.
I'm not a huge scallop guy, but since shrimp came with it, like you got 2 pieces of shrimp, I'm like, I'm gonna try scallops.
Scallops are amazing. Like if somebody hurts my family or something, or I don't know,
you're gonna
some random way I wind up on death row. My last meal will absolutely include scallops.
Dude, scallops are good,
and they don't go with lamb. But I'm going to get both because I'm going to overdo it and I'm going to indulge.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like when I get steak and scallops. It's like, do those go together?
Absolutely. That's your version of surf and turf.
Well, I guess.
Selfish.
Maybe a little.
Scallops are fantastic.
Well, so
if done correctly,
they would be better to me if they didn't. And I don't want to knock scallops because I do eat them. A little more rubbery than shrimp.
See, they didn't do it right. All right, if you're a texture person, that's what everybody says about scallops. I don't like they have to be done correctly.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree.
I mean, even a medium rare steak can be a little jello-y if the temp is off a couple of degrees, right?
But I feel like if you got a medium rare steak and it ended up being medium, it'd still be fantastic.
I don't know, man. I remember we got into it's my barber's cut my hair for 29 years.
Yeah,
almost 30. And
you're loyal.
We've been in 2 huge, like I would say, yes. I definitely do not have commitment issues with my barber. We've been in 2, like I would say, lasted more than an hour arguments. One was over steak. Unbelievable. He's a total foodie. He travels around the country to eat.
Which is your dream job.
He has a personal chef that he hires sometimes for special occasions. I'll tell you about him later. He's on Instagram. He's amazing. He cuts his hair too, Chef Joel. But anyway,
Lorenzi?
No. Is he tomorrow? Because I want to talk to him about something he said about Creighton defensively the other day. and it was over steak because he's one of those guys. And sometimes I think it's a cultural thing, but he doesn't mind a brown steak. And I'm like,
what, hamburger?
You can't do, and so we just went back and forth, and it ended up, and this was just like 3 years ago. And he's like, at the very end, he goes, "Hey man, your appointment on Fridays is replaceable. You don't have to come back." Dead serious. We're like 30 minutes into this back and forth.
You're like,
I'll
eat a hamburger too.
Listen, we've talked about, he's a non-vax guy. We've had some knockdown dragouts over philosophical beliefs. He loves to watch courtroom TV, so we argue about, political things. Because he's super well-rounded. And steak was almost the deal. So I don't know.
Can you imagine?
Because people like their steak how they like their steak, though. And there's so many steak snobs, right? I mean, this looks like it's 136 degrees. That's closer to medium.
You bring your own temperature, your own meat temperature.
Dude, you ever seen thermometer guy? It's like, because you could do that whole finger test thing.
Thermometer.
Yeah, I don't know about steaks. Pizza, that's a better example. Like, people would be more willing to compromise on a pizza that's a little off than a steak. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
Because
more times than not, pizza isn't as expensive as your steak.
Yeah.
Now, if you're making it at home, it's a little different story. But if you go somewhere and you're like, I'm getting a steak versus a pizza, that's why I think you're more willing to compromise.
So I was at Just Good Meats. I was looking for these particular burgers they had. They're called Pat Burgers, and they're amazing. Long story. This isn't a food show. We're supposed we got to land the plane, but
if it was a food show,
it'd be different. But it does tie in Nebraska because I was talking to my guy Sean, and I was giving him a hard time about not maximizing their social media, their Twitter account, and social media in general. Because there's a new Mexican place I told you about, Avila's, that the Facebook has been like their saving grace, this food lovers segment, and so they blow up, man. I swung by there Saturday. It was like 10 o'clock. There were like 15 cars there, right? But anyway, I was like, yeah, you got to use your social media. Coach Rule is super pumped about, you guys want to take care of him. I think he's coming on Thursday. I said, he's swinging by the shop. He goes, no way. And I said, yeah, man. I said, team beef jerky, whatever. We're just going back and forth. She goes, hang on, I got a gift.
Uh-oh.
So my man goes back there. He's gone for like 5-6 minutes. Cuts up these fatties, vacuum seals them. He's like, you got to tweet it to him.
Is that why you tweeted the ribeye?
Yeah. I'm like, he's coming on Thursday. He's like, no, man, I'm trying to, let's do this social media thing on Twitter. So I tweeted it out. Coach Rule texts back and he goes, hey, we get back in town on Thursday, man. I'm stopping in. Tell him to be ready. I said, see how easy that is? Right. Like, social media is powerful.
It is. It's got
very
a huge reach.
Dude, did you see those steaks, though?
Oh, they were massive. And they were red.
Dude,
like, that's something to keep in mind.
Just cut those. They're 1.5-inchers. Oh, team fatties. I couldn't believe it. He goes, here's your little gift too, and it was in like paper. I didn't read what it was. I just put it in the. I put it in the freezer.
Flank steak.
Listen, I could rock some flank.
I know you can, but versus that ribeye, you'd be like, come on, guy.
I am team ribeye. So I mean, Rose out and about again in Dallas this weekend.
The Mavericks taking on Kyrie. Oh, you mean Matt Rule?
I can't believe that. I mean, Micah, mornings with Micah, he was like, Dad.
Yeah, when are we calling Micah?
I don't know. He's probably in the car now. He's not happy. They're not quite in the car. They took an L yesterday, and he's still beside himself. They played a team that made, I don't know, 10 field goals, and I think 8 were threes. Yeah. Get out and guard the arc, buddy.
If they're making them, you know who else made 8 threes? A guy named Seth Lundy.
Hey, they beat a good not a good, a bubble, a fringe Penn State team, and kept Pickett in check.
And they did that in the first game too.
Because Pickett is the real. Yeah, but they had Bando. They had Vanderbilt.
That
So
is
I was
true.
like,
yeah. Was that the game he got hurt?
Was that Penn State?
I think that was the game he got hurt.
And like, because Pickett gets buckets. I mean,
he's
dude's a Wooden finalist for a reason, right? But I mean, Lundy got hot, but they don't have Casey. How you like that,
dude? What a game that was to watch, especially.
Was that not nuts? We were like making dinner. Mike is like, no way. Kato was just getting home from practice, and he's like, "Are you serious right now?" Yeah, we're serious.
Well, what's crazy is you go into that matchup, and of course, the team thinks they're going to win, but I don't think a lot of other people thought they were going to win.
What was the line? Was Penn State favored?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you said it like are you sure?
But most teams are favored against Nebraska.
Well, I mean, it's a safe bet, but you never know. Like Indiana was favored over Purdue. Sometimes you just get those lines.
Vegas just knows the outcome. It's because it's all scripted.
Okay, Arian Foster. I see. I hope people. He's getting killed, but I hope people know that he was.
Good humor, man.
I hope they know. Humor. But there are like players that were getting mad at him, like NFL guys.
Yeah, because they bought into the.
I'm like, I don't think he was being serious. Oh yeah, Penn State was favored.
What was the line?
4.5.
Yeah.
So not crazy.
Well, obviously not with how Nebraska played.
They got to. No, I'm not even going to allow myself. I'm just going to stay in the moment. I was going to try to predict a couple more wins. Not going to do it. not going to do it. Rudown.
Well, hey, we'll still talk Nebraska basketball more in our next segment. We'll talk Creighton basketball following that. We have Sam McEwen at 8:00, and then Mike Tanier at 8:45. Have we gotten Mike yet? Like, has Mike been close every time?
No, that is. It's deep. It's at DP Sharks. Who's that, Shane? Twitter. That's the guy.
Davenport.
Yeah. Davenport. Yes. We've gotten so close to Gary.
Gary. you wanted me to say that. I know it.
Isn't it weird though? In my mind, I can't remember the name, but I know what the Twitter handle looks like.
Which is you're ridiculous sometimes.
Everybody has their mechanisms.
Hey, DB. Speaking of Twitter, our poll question of the day: who was the bigger star of the weekend? Was it Trey Alexander?
Gosh, he was good.
Or was it Keisei Tominaga? You can vote on Twitter. Both were influential and impactful to their team's wins. But you decide at home. H Varsity Radio, that's where you can vote on the poll question. As we head into our break, go ahead.
Who made more threes?
What, Trey made 5 and
Keisei
made 6? Less?
5.
Oh, 5
Trey was 5 of 9. Keisei was 5 of 10.
And Trey made more free throws.
Dude.
Which, down the stretch, matters a lot.
We'll get all of it.
We'll talk Nebraska basketball more next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back to the show, 888-638-4876. If you'd like to get involved, how about this on Twitter? Our good friend Darcy, Shane's bestie, wishing me a happy belated birthday on Twitter.
Oh,
Thank you,
that's
Darcy.
nice.
Darcy is part of the Dingman's family, and it is the perfect time to tell you about Dingman's Collision Center. 4 locations
Happy
throughout
belated birthday,
the metro area, along with the standalone mechanical shop at 120th and Maple. You know what, Darcy? I bet you were first to actually tell me happy birthday by giving me a gift on Friday's live show. You just didn't know it.
Hey, so
I just didn't know it.
I'm Thursday at 11.
At Dingman's to get your oil changed?
Yeah, and I think they're going to be right on time because I think I have a slow leak.
Are you gambling by waiting this long? Because you said it came on Friday.
Well, I'm at 14K miles, 14,000.
Yeah, but I'm saying
I'm 4,000 miles over.
oh my gosh. They're gonna pull out your dipstick and they're gonna be like, "Yeah, sir, I don't know how this car was running."
If anybody knows anything about me and car maintenance, that's why I lease. I just don't want the headache.
You lease just in case it breaks down on the side of the road,
warranties.
and you're like, "I'll just get the newer model."
Hey, so full disclosure, I've been putting air in my tire every 8 days for like a month. Because I convinced myself it was the cold weather, and my thing is really sensitive. But perhaps something may be wrong with my tire.
Please tell me you had a nail in it.
Dude, I have more tire issues than anybody in the U.S.
I don't know. I mean,
I had 2 in 3 weeks.
Funny you say that. Whenever I had this car, this little guy out here, I call it a deer magnet. If there's any hunters out there that just want my car to be placed in the middle of the field so deer will come, it's kind of like Field of Dreams. And
you hit a deer before?
Oh, 3 times. 3 times.
I would be terrified.
In that car.
I would be terrified.
I also totaled my other car because I hit a deer on the highway.
Yeah, let's not give me rights.
So I hit 2 deer on the highway.
I stopped running into things years ago.
Not easy. Well, so the first time I hit a deer on the highway, I pulled over and I'm like freaking out because it's pitch black outside. I don't know what I hit. My car's not starting, so I call like the police because you're supposed to report all those things. And
I'm sure you followed the rules too, my little rule follower.
Dude, my hands were gripped to the steering wheel even when they came up because I was in so much shock. Because like all you hear is just a thud, and you're like, "What the heck just happened?" You're just driving on the highway, and so the cop comes up and goes, "Yeah, you got some hair and some blood at the front of your car," and I thought I hit a person. And he goes, "Oh no, it's just a deer." I go, "Why didn't you lead with that?"
Old school creep show. Thanks for the ride, lady.
Well, I was in
I'm
Sioux
not even
City.
gonna get into that because I know you probably.
I was in Sioux City, and the homeless.
Shane, do you remember that creep show? Thanks for the ride.
And that's why I thought I did.
So you hit a person?
No, I hit a deer, and it went like 20 feet.
Stop it.
But I'll tell you what, if that ever happened again, I would go to Dingman's because they've been in the business for 25 years and they're family owned and family run. And I like to support local, and you should too.
Then thank goodness for Bluetooth because
and they tell you happy birthday.
Hey,
they tell me happy birthday, even though yeah, they're the only ones that tell me happy birthday, I should say.
I think I told you happy birthday.
No. I meant like business wise. Like my mortgage guy sent me a happy birthday email.
You just made him quite a bit of money.
My dentist sends me a happy birthday email, also somebody that I pay a lot of money to. So it's the people that I pay. Darcy's not one that says it because I pay her a lot of money. She is genuine.
She's one of your free friends.
She is genuine.
How's the poll question doing? I think I need to retweet that.
So the poll question of the day, we'll go back to it. Who was the bigger star of the weekend? Was it Keisei Tominaga or was it Trey Alexander? 59 votes so far, and people are leaning Tominaga, which doesn't shock me because he was probably more of the wow player of the weekend. But when you talk about bigger, if you really dive into the impact on the team, I would still lean Trey because it was kind of the Trey Kalkbrenner show, and there wasn't a lot of point spread. Meanwhile, what I thought Nebraska did a good job this weekend of was, even though Derek Walker wasn't his typical efficient self, even though Sam Griesel didn't bounce into double digits like we saw in the previous game, they had production kind of spread throughout the team. And once again, for the Bluejays, you had no bench production. It's the second straight day. Straight game.
I don't think anybody that came off the bench for Creighton didn't play double digits, right?
Because the stats here.
Farabello only played like 8 or 9. And there wasn't one starter for Creighton that played less than 33 minutes.
Farabello played 5.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I knew it was in the single digits.
And Miller played 6. So you're right.
So nobody in the starting lineup for the Jays played less than 33 minutes, right?
Correct. Kaluma was 33. Nearly on the nose.
That is heavy minutes.
Well, I don't know, we were going to...
At one point, did you think that Creighton was going to blow that thing open?
Blow it open and then blow it up. I thought there were 2 different points in the game.
I never felt good enough about Villanova's offense, even when they took the lead. What was it, 52-51 or 51-50, something like that? They were having to work too hard.
Are you talking about the first time they took the lead?
In the second half.
Yeah.
Because I think Dixon got the little lefty hook in the end one. And by the way, he was working out on King. They had to get Kalk back in a hurry. But then he went right at Kalk too. But I felt like they had to work too hard.
Did it surprise you at all that down the stretch of that basketball game, that not the Villanova game, the Nebraska game, we'll just kind of bounce back and forth for these next 2 segments. I think that'll be better. Did it surprise you at all that Tominaga was on the bench?
No, because his inability to guard,
I agree,
is a problem.
I agree.
It's a problem.
Defensively, it's where his biggest hole in his game is.
Yeah.
Offensively, you'll take what he was doing all day.
And that's the risk reward. But while you're saying that, I'm going back to Micah when he said, Dad, on the sneak, Coach Lutke was subbing offense for defense all game. I mean, for prep.
Is he the best coach?
Yeah. I'm like, anyway. Managing minutes for Hoiberg yesterday and working guys in and out, he was pretty good yesterday. I could totally see what he was trying to do, and
especially
that
at the end when you're trying to win
with the substitution patterns. Fred was on. See, that's the thing though that's mind-boggling, and not to go all.
Thank you, guys.
Twitter exchange, but I was telling you about the Twitter exchange the other day between Big Red Cast and I always say I can't even say his name without people not taking me serious, but they were going back and forth over knowing basketball and not knowing basketball and wanting to validate Coach Hoiberg. And those are one of the, like yesterday is a microcosm of why it's frustrating. He hit you with the 3-game stretch last year. But then, it's like, basically it's what our guy Honky said at on Twitter. That's his last name, by the way. He's like, yeah, 30% win clip low. Stop making excuses after year 4. But then you're like, yeah, but no, 30% win clip after year 4. And you're like, yeah, but yesterday was a yeah, but game. Like, how undermanned are they? Well, it's gonna get worse.
Mm-hmm.
And so they find ways to just stay in it, being void of talent, right? So you want to stay in the moment and recognize the job that's being done, but then you look at it in its totality and you're back straddling the fence again. I wonder what the majority of the fan base wants. Like the paying customers that go to PBA, I wonder what they want to see. I do.
Outside of a win?
Well, that let's
outside of the
start,
obvious.
Yeah, let's start with that's the given.
Right.
I mean, do they think about 11 mil? They don't. It's not their money. But fiscal sat, I don't know. It's such a tortured fan base.
And it has been for a little while.
But can you imagine? And here's the crazy thing. Can you imagine if they just won? Because there are a lot of Nebraska basketball fans. There really are. They're waiting for something to celebrate. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I mean, that was a fantastic coaching performance yesterday.
Yeah, you have to give credit where credit's due. Fred Hoiberg did an awesome job.
No two ways about it. But I don't know what you're doing if you're looking at the bottom line. I mean, they won a game yesterday in which they were underdogs at home, and Derek Walker was in single digits.
It's kind of been the name of the game for the last.
Well, they took good care of the basketball too, though.
That I think was the biggest takeaway.
8 turnovers.
Great point there. Not even. I think it was 7.
Yeah, somewhere around.
So 7 turnovers opposed to 27 assists or something like that, which is.
And they kept Penn State, who doesn't really turn it over anyway, kept them down. And Penn State was in single digits.
That's a season low from not turning the ball over. In the last 3 games, Nebraska has allowed the other team to score 72 plus points. Yep. 72. It's amazing what you can do when you hold a team to the 60s.
Didn't shoot it well. 24-60 is not going to get her done.
Hey, conversation continued. We'll talk Creighton and Nebraska more next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
A continuation of college basketball here on Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. He's Damon Benning. I'm Andrew Rogers. We are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. Following a 72-63 win for Nebraska over the weekend, that was Fred Hoiberg's 11th win of the season with this team. That's the most in his coaching era with the team. And there's still 7 games remaining. So you asked the question, what are fans thinking about when they show up at PBA? Because a lot of question marks surround Hoiberg and his ability to not only lead this team, but lead any Nebraska team. And I think it starts there. I think it starts at getting this 11th win for him, because you can at least say that in a season of woes, that Hoiberg and his team still compete, and they are getting better, even though how it began, it didn't start off strong. So I think that's a big takeaway. And I wonder if a lot of people are thinking about that too, when they think, oh man, this is somebody that if we could get a different coach in here, we can make the NCAA tournament. Let's just say if you had Bill Self, you wouldn't make the NCAA tournament with the struggles that this team has gone through. Bill Self wouldn't change the team that is on the floor right now to get you to the NCAA tournament. Fred Hoiberg is just making do with what he has. And it's not to say that I'm knocking any players when I say that. It's just, it's the truth. Yeah. It's just what's in front of him.
It's interesting. And I asked Robin, can it look a certain way where when you're watching these games unfold, right? You're at Ann Arbor coming up, and then I think you got Wisconsin at home, and then you're at Rutgers, and then I think you have Maryland at home. So you're going to go the next 4. You got 2 at the house and 2 on the road. Does the basketball need to look a certain way? If you fast forwarded past wins, if you're like, well, I don't think you're gonna win, or it's like, can it look a certain way to buy yourself some time? Because for all that's happened, for some reason, he's still only 2 games under 500. Do you know what I mean? They're still 11-13. But I don't know. The problem is over time, whatever is, usually it's more of. So guys and gals can be overexposed. Like if you're living on borrowed time, over time, that typically reveals itself. If you're pretty talented and you get off to a slow start, over time, that typically will reveal itself. So I don't know. Can Lawrence continue to shoot the ball well? I don't know how I feel about Tominaga over time. But I mean, what are you going to do for depth in terms of scoring punch? You mentioned the defensive stats. You know, the 3 consecutive games over 70 points, and this team was built on defense. Then we talked about how he had flipped the roster and the mentality from a year ago and from pace and space to gritty grinders. They may have to go back to trying to score again. And I still don't think that's the way that they can play, because I don't think it's sustainable.
You talk about sustainable. How about like the context of this? College sports in general is built off of win-loss. It's not really built on, hey, what
Aesthetics.
wins you get.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you beat Creighton this year. That's a big win. You're going to save your job because you beat Creighton. No, if you would have beaten 3 D2 schools and that would have showed up on your record, and instead of looking 11-13, you now look 14-11. People would be like, "Oh, Fred Hoiberg's having a good year," because everything is so win-loss oriented. So whether you win games, whether you lose games, your job is always on the line, no matter what.
Hot take.
No matter what.
Hot take.
You always have to win games to kind of keep the mantra positive. It's not about, hey, if we're talking football, we're talking Big Ten football. You beat Ohio State and you beat Iowa in the same season. But you end up going 3-9. People are going.
See, I don't know if I agree with that.
People are not going to be happy with 3-9 because you're going to say, "Why didn't you make a bowl game if you could beat Ohio State?"
I don't know about that. I think there was a stretch here over these last 8-9 years where Nebraska could not have had a winning record, but if they would have beaten the right teams, it would have kept folks at bay. I mean, that's just the sentiment I get. I'm serious. Like, if you go 4-8 and you beat Wisconsin and Iowa in the same year. I mean, look at Nebraska basketball, for instance. We're still talking about Iowa and Creighton.
I don't know about Iowa as much as Creighton.
Oh, my gosh. You didn't hear yesterday that, hey, man, they were ranking the wins. It's the third best win. Right behind Creighton and Iowa. And I'm like,
it's not going to save Fred Hoiberg's job ranking those wins.
And it was so long ago, though. Right, that's a vastly different team. I think ultimately it comes down to continuing to develop, because for whatever the reason, and it's got to be part of the culture. So I think at some point you have to tip your cap to the staff. Like, they bring it almost every night when it would be pretty easy not to. They started Sam Hoiberg.
Not last night.
No, I'm just saying in general, they've started Sam Hoiberg. Like. That's hard to play Big Ten basketball like that. No disrespect to Sam, but you can't be starting your son and expecting to contend in the Big Ten. Now, whatever. I think he only played 11 games that night or 11 minutes that night, but that's it's like you're trying to play poker, and you're playing 6-8 offsuit, right? You're playing Jack 9.
Right.
I mean, they're okay hands, and listen, you need the flop to go right, but you just can't make a living at the table. But again, when you pit it against the backdrop of the totality of the 3.5 years, that's where you get the pushback. And I wonder, because it's weird how it's starting to come up just like football did. People start looking at the buyout number. And I think this is arguably, it's not even arguable. I think this is his best coaching job. I really do. First of all, we act like he didn't just flip the culture in a year. And yeah, I know you can do that with basketball, but he did. Went from space and pace and shoot the ball to, kind of grind you up, playing with good defense. And he recruited that way. Right? So like that unto itself, he's had some turnover in his staff, and that's been a positive. So it's like, gosh, do you need a starting point? Remember how we wanted to see a football coach? If you just tweak a few coordinators, and up here we go. We're on another offensive coordinator, and oh man, if he would just get rid of this guy as his DC, we started trying to rationalize if you just swap out a few pieces, how close are you? I don't know what the sentiment is with Nebraska's fan base, because there's enough of them out there. Have they seen enough, or is this year enough to say, man, if you just give him the pieces, I think he can coach? I thought he was fantastic yesterday. There's no two ways about it. And I know Tominaga got hot, but we're underselling how he utilized and strategized with the roster in terms of offense for D. I thought he was fantastic yesterday, and I don't think that's drinking one bit of Kool-Aid.
No, there's moments that he's had, great coaching outings, and there's other ones where, you kind of shake your head. But this year he's been dealt a hard hand, and there's no doubt about that. I don't think anybody's arguing that. But I will say, at the end of the day, what's taken into the most account, it feels, is win-loss record. And somebody that does win a lot is Coach McDermott. And, on that Creighton side of things, the moment in that game that kind of scared me was with 3 minutes to go, Ryan Kalkbrenner heads to the baseline to take a charge with 4 fouls. Did you like that? Do you think he got lucky? Or do you think in that moment you would tell your player, hey, just let him go?
Yeah, so
because in that moment for me, I'd say let him go. You have 4 fouls. You're too impactful down low for the rest of this game. But you also don't want to play scared.
I think at that stage of the game, now if there's 6-7 minutes left, okay, I could see it. But in a tightly contested game where it seemed like every 2 points was going to matter, I think you make that play.
Man, I was holding my breath.
I think you make that play every day that ends in NY. And it's just hard to tell competitors, hey, man, like, again, 6-7 minutes to go. Hey, maybe you let that one go. But in a tightly contested game, you're getting ready to get under the 4-minute mark. I think you need to stop.
Paid off.
Yeah. And listen, do you get the Whitmore buzz?
I think he's just on a bad team.
We talked about all these. What was that? Thursday, Wednesday? We talked about all these freshmen, and
I mean, being a potential lottery pick, I think people are kind of like reaching, but at the same time, crazier things have happened.
I don't get it. I think it's hard to function in any level of basketball when you don't shoot it well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think of when you talk about buzz, this is a completely different example here. But when Michael Porter Jr. was at Mizzou, he played like 3 games, and the state of Missouri was going nuts, or like the buzz around him was insane. #1 pick. Oh, he's going to go top 3 in the draft. And then all of a sudden he goes like still 12 or 13 and he played 3 games. Like buzz is like kind of crazy in how it can land you a place, but it also goes to show that NBA scouts know a lot more than me when it comes to
and I always think too
talent.
Like I think you always start with talent. I mean, we've seen it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I watch it all the time, and it starts young. We like to blame NBA and NFL on, oh man, taking a chance on talent. Listen, you see it all. You see it at the high school level. I look at wins and losses and how people play in crunch time, and then I look at like how people fawn and how they can throw or catch or run in shorts and a t-shirt, and I'm like, you guys aren't interested in winning. You're not. Like, these guys don't win.
Sam McEwen up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McEwen.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sam McEwen.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. And that kind of thing.
Sam McEwen.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McEwen.
Top of the hour here on Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, alongside Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. Happy to have you with us on the show. 590 ESPN Omaha, 1480 ESPN Lincoln, live on Twitter, live on YouTube, and also happy to have Sam McEwen joining us, as he does every Monday morning. Sam, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Sam, good morning.
We're hanging in. It's Super Bowl week, right?
Does it seem like it? Are you like, there's so much going on in the sports landscape, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, it's Super Bowl week. Does it feel like Super Bowl week?
No, not really. It doesn't mean that it won't be a fun game and a competitive game. But no, like it doesn't really feel like that. I think when you have 2 weeks between it, you lose a little bit of that momentum. And it's a team that a lot of people don't know a lot about, which is the Eagles. They kind of flew under the radar this year, even though they had the best record in the NFC. And it's a team that people know everything about, and that's the Chiefs. So it's not like two powerhouses or anything like that.
Sam, another team that flew under the radar on Sunday, if you were a Penn State fan, was Nebraska. and they get the win 72-63. Now that got Hoiberg up to 11 wins, it's the most in his coaching era, and he still has 7 games remaining in the regular season. Where do you see that total climbing? Do you see 2, maybe 3 more on the schedule that Nebraska can nab?
I do. Yeah, I think they've got a great opportunity Saturday against Wisconsin. Wisconsin's struggling. They're struggling to score.
Well, that Northwestern game was kind of a shocker.
Yeah, it was. And the Northwestern is, this is a culmination of a 4-year process for them. So they're peaking.
I agree. I do think Northwestern is pretty good. I've said that for about 3 weeks. So, but just the lulls that they go through and how they execute in crunch time, Wisconsin. I don't know, man. You're right. It's struggle may be the right word.
Yeah. So and Greg Gard's going to be. They got rid of Paul Chris, and I don't know that Greg Gard's done a heck of a lot better in recent years. So we'll see what happens. I know they won the Big Ten title last year, or they tied for it. But Wisconsin's one. Minnesota's another. Michigan State, that's a tough team for Fred Hoiberg to beat because of the way they play and their pace. But that's on there. And Maryland. I think Maryland's absolutely a team that Nebraska can beat on the right night. They haven't done it in the Hoiberg era, but that's not a great shooting team, and if they miss a bunch of threes, they did not when they played Nebraska the first time. But if they miss a bunch of threes, there's a chance. So I think Nebraska can win 13 or 14 games. It's possible. And I think that'd probably be enough to run it back with Fred for year 5.
Sam, if you're taking a look at the rest of the Big Ten, obviously the big one with Purdue and Indiana this week, and Indiana, who was actually favored in that one, gets the win. Who's the next best team in the Big Ten for you?
Well, I think on the right night, I'll take Illinois. I think they've got a really good player in Shannon. Obviously, they lost by a couple to Iowa. I think Illinois is the team. When I think about best, I'm thinking about what you can do in the NCAA tournament. And I think Illinois has got a team that can go to the Sweet 16 because they've got a lead guard. They're pretty physically tough. That's probably been the team that that's jumped out at me at times this year. Indiana's obviously got a great player, and Hood Schifino hit some shots, important ones against Purdue. So I think there's but they're up and down. Michigan State, I don't love that team, but Izzo's the coach, and you can always count on him to get some stuff done. So I don't know if there's another Sweet 16. I think Purdue might be the only one, but Illinois, right night, Northwestern can beat you, and then Rutgers is really tough. You remember Houston had a Final Four team, I think, a couple years ago, or an Elite 8 team. I think it was a Final Four team, and they almost got knocked out by Rutgers in the second round. So Rutgers plays that sort of isolated ball where
good defensive length too.
Right.
It's interesting.
So that guy's a hell of a coach.
Yeah, Peichel. That's why they just locked him up. I think he just got 8 for 30, 831 or something like that.
I believe it. Yeah, he's a good coach.
Does a 6th-way tie for 3rd sound right in the Big Ten?
It does. I think you're going to see a lot of 6, 7, 8, 9 seeds. Again, no elite teams, but maybe Purdue. Well, Purdue is an elite team, but you got Purdue and then maybe one other team getting to the Sweet 16. I think it's going to be a lot of different leagues in the Sweet 16. I think the Big 12 will get maybe 2. The idea that they're going to get 5, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they have very good teams, but they're going to have some teams that get surprised in the first round. Won't shock me if there's a West Coast Conference team there, Gonzaga or St. Mary's. Houston obviously will be there. There'll be 1 or 2 ACC teams. And it's not going to shock me if North Carolina or Duke is one of them. I think both those teams have a lot of talent. They can screw around during the regular season, but when it comes time to play tournament games, they're going to be right there.
Sam, question for you, because we were chatting early on in the show about win-loss record and, a lot about what fans may or may not be thinking about when they step foot into PBA on game day. And, I brought something up and DB and I had a good back and forth conversation about it, but I'm interested to gauge your thoughts. How much do we focus on win-loss percentage? Not just win-loss percentage, maybe just the wins versus the losses in regards to total when it comes to retaining a coach or figuring out how well a coach has done, whether it's in a year or throughout his career versus, say, like a quality win. So, for example,
quality loss
or a quality loss. So, for example, say this year, Nebraska ended up beating Purdue, and then they beat Creighton. Would people still be thinking, like, is Fred Hoiberg our guy because he doesn't have the wins to back it up, even though there are some quality wins there?
Yeah, I do. I think the minimum goal really for any power conference program is the NIT. And so you want to try to make that every year. In lieu of making that, then you want to try to make the NCAA tournament. So postseason play, the NIT or the NCAA. And Nebraska has not done that under Hoiberg. And I think until he does that, I think people are going to have a serious question as to whether he's the right guy. Collier made the NIT number of times. Miles made it twice, and then he made an NCAA tournament. Actually, Miles made the NIT, just twice, and then the NCAA tournament once. Doc made the NIT three times. Hoiberg hasn't made any of those, and so, even if they had beaten Purdue, I think there's still a question mark about whether he's the right guy until he gets them to 500 regular season record. And again, I think it's probably going to be enough because they had some injuries and that was a tough deal. And the Big Ten gave them this brutally hard schedule, especially in January. So, let's check back at the end of February. And I think we're probably going to see like a 14-16 team. And then you think about, well, Gary and Bandamel might have gotten them an extra 1 or 2 wins. And so, that's the way it'll be viewed, I think. And
if they're 14-16, Sam, I think that would be amazing. I'm on record. I'm gonna tell you that right now. If they get to 14-16, because I don't see it, that would be amazing.
Yeah, it would be good. Again, that means beating Wisconsin. That means beating Maryland. And that means winning another game. And beating Minnesota, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and one other game.
Remember a week ago we asked if there were 2 more wins on the schedule.
Yeah. Well, and I thought there was. Yeah, like I thought there was wins on the schedule.
That would be.
And so, like, I think again, I would suspect he's going to come back. But the question is, what do you do in the off season to get you over the hump? Because you can't have 5 seasons of it. Like, you're gonna have to figure out how to build a roster in the off season that gets you to the NIT or the NCAA.
Shoot, I hear 14-16. I'm like, there's nothing to think about. I just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think there would be.
Yeah, 14-16. There's nothing to think about. Sam, let me ask you, fresh off of Coach Rule being in Texas, he's speaking to that staff. You got Wager. You know what he's done with his chief of staff. You look at how the staff is compiled. Sam, how do you think Nebraska wants to recruit? Do you have a good idea now, looking at how he's assembled his staff versus what they've done this first year?
I think we have a pretty good idea. Yeah, I think we can tell very clearly that Nebraska wants to recruit the state of Nebraska and the state of Texas very hard. And so I think you're not going to have the same number of prospects each year out of the state of Nebraska. You're going to have roughly the same in Texas. But, in Nebraska, it's going to fluctuate. Last year was a really good year. I think this upcoming cycle is a really good year. But it won't be that way every year. In Texas, they're going to want to try to get, it appears, 6 to 8 prospects a year. They're probably not going to get, top 30 prospects in Texas. That'll be tough to get. Texas, the SEC, Oklahoma, A&M. But you can get the 75th best prospect in the state of Texas, and you're getting a 4-star. So I think they want to recruit Texas hard. And then I think they want to be able to keep their relationships in the big cities as you go toward the Big Ten footprint. So Chicago, I think Detroit eventually, I think Philadelphia, and then whatever you want to call New Jersey, Newark, South Jersey, North Jersey, like so both of those. The suburbs of New York City and Philadelphia would tend to be better in football than the schools in New York City and Philadelphia. And then they'll go get a quarterback wherever they have to, and that list will start with Dylan Raiola. And if he chooses to go to USC, then the next guy probably on the list is Danny Kaelin.
Interesting. Let me stay right there. We got into this long discussion last Friday. It was myself, Sauter, and Andrew.
Was that long?
And we were talking about the inordinate number of Power 5 offers, and there'll be plenty more to come with the top 6-7 guys in the state. And we got into Coach Frost and that staff being really good in state, and then there was the Riley Ducker year with Helms and those guys. And since then, it's kind of been hit and miss in state. So I'm trying to set an expectation level of what we think would be a good haul. So given these personalities and a guy that's part of the Super Six, Carter Nelson, Caleb Benning, Danny Kaelin, McMorris, Hall, Pyfrom, and I'm going to throw in Ashton Murphy to give you 7. I set the total at 3.5 of Nebraska getting those guys. Given what you know, how hard they're being recruited around the country, what would be a good haul, no pun intended, for those 7? Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it 5? What does Sam McEwen think? Wow, that'd be pretty good if they got blank number of those guys.
If Nebraska lands Dylan Raiola, then I say 4. If they don't, I say 5.
Wow, that seems high.
Interesting.
5
seems high, doesn't it? That would be extremely impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be impressive, but I think Rhule's staff cares. I do think that if they want to get all 7 of those guys, now that's some of it, right? Like you got to want all 7 of them, but I think they do. Then I anticipate, getting 4 of those, and then Kaelin is sort of the wild card. I mean, he isn't. I'm sure he isn't going to feel put out if Dylan Raiola goes to Nebraska. You can't turn that down, and nobody would. It could have been St. Flores, and it just doesn't make any difference. I mean, I've watched Raiola throw. He's really good. So you don't take a second quarterback if you're taking him. That's just how that works, and that's okay. But I think they can do pretty good with some of the other ones. Now if they hit on all the receivers they have right now, then they may not want that many more receivers. But I don't think they'll know if Bryce Turner and Jalen Lloyd and a few others are going to pan out for sure,
mm-hmm.
until the 24 cycle is over. I mean, I think Nick Morris is a top 100 player. I really do. He's the Caden Helms of this season, and I think by the end of this process, he'll be way up the list. And so I don't know what that means for him. He doesn't have an Oregon offer yet, does he?
No.
That'll come, right? He just got Penn State, right? He got just Penn State. Got Oklahoma. There's not a lot more for him to get. Oregon will come through. I guess the pinnacle of college offers is Alabama and Ohio State, but I think he'll get just about everything else up to that. So, he'll be a tough one to get. We'll just have to see. I'd say 4. You think that's high?
I think I said Friday that I thought 4 would be exceptional.
I said 3.
Three sounds low, but not that low. 4 sounds
great.
Now, to be clear, I think Nebraska's going to get Dylan Raiola.
Whoa.
USC is the team that I think could derail that.
Oh, it's interesting. 2 weeks ago, it was Georgia.
Right.
No,
what makes you say that?
No, I know that. I'm talking about the national sentiment, Sam.
Yeah. If I were him, who am I? I'm nobody. I would tell him not to go to Georgia. Like, I don't think that, they haven't had an elite quarterback since Matthew Stafford, and Stafford had a great career there. But no. If I was going to advise him, it would be between USC and Nebraska. Nebraska for obvious reasons, and quite frankly, USC for obvious reasons. They have a head coach that's coached 3 Heisman Trophy winners and 3 first-round draft picks. I think the very first pick, Baker Mayfield, I think he was the first pick. Kyler Murray was the first pick. Caleb Williams would be the first pick. I mean, USC is the other team. That's just, if he goes to Georgia, I'd just be stunned. Like, I don't know what you would be going to Georgia to do. You want to be a defensive tackle, you go to Georgia.
We're speaking with Sam McEwen.
So I think they're going to get Dylan Raiola. So I don't think they will get a quarterback from the state of Nebraska. That's my hunch. If not Nebraska, then USC, and then
We're speaking with Sam McEwen, sports editor and Nebraska columnist for the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra, dropping takes on Coffee.
I like that,
We're
Sam.
big fans. Yeah, huge fan. And speaking of me being a fan of one guy, and I probably join the mass population when I say this, but being a fan of Matt Rule is something that's easy to do. But I read something in your article over the weekend about what Dave Tepper said, and you referenced it's something that he said, last week, but calling him a CEO type of head coach, and that just not working. That was a mistake, is what he ended up saying. And maybe in the NFL level, but at college, it seems like being a CEO is a good thing because you have so much administration to kind of oversee. And, in a lot of ways, because of all the moving parts of college sports, being a CEO is a good thing, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Yes. It's a much better fit in the college level. And I do think in the right fit in the NFL, you can do that too. I think what Tepper was saying, and it's probably not necessarily wrong, is that the NFL has gone toward this trend of, like, although Frank Reich doesn't necessarily fit this trend, of like young, edgy offensive coordinators who, like, they call the plays and they're like, geniuses, and they're so far into their work that they kind of leave the players to do what they want to do. And, sometimes that backfires. You look at Nathaniel Hackett, he didn't know how to run a football game. But other times it doesn't backfire. You look at Shanahan or McVay, and they sort of fit the other templates. And so that seemed to be what he's going for. I think on the collegiate level, a CEO coach is pretty important, because not only are you the head coach, but you're effectively, the talent acquisition guy, you're the draft guy, you have to run the whole thing. You're the team president on top of being the head coach. And so, being able to have a grasp of every single detail is important at the collegiate level. And I think there's a number of head coaches who are very good at being CEOs. And I think that's more Rule's MO. He's built a staff that is very much in tune with what he wants. He's built a huge staff, by the way. It might be the biggest in the Big Ten.
That's what they're saying.
It's good size.
It's very big, and so, like, he's got a lot of people there that are working for him and working with him, all the King's horses and all the King's men, trying to put Nebraska football back together again.
Sam,
so, I think
Dumpty. Sam, you all in? Do you get the family feel? Sister Sledge, we are family.
Sure. Yeah. Everybody talks about being a family, so I'm sure it is, and that's fine. I'm more interested in how systems work and how those things sort of interlock together. So I've spent a lot of my rewinds talking about what a rebuild looks like, what his staff is, the challenges he faces. I'm going to try not to put narratives to that. Like, of course, it's a family, but you could ask everybody whether it's a family, they're always going to say it's a family. So as a reporter, my job is to try to weed out the things that everybody says and look at the uniqueness of Rhule's approach. And there are unique things to it relative to what Nebraska's done in the past. And I think those are interesting things. I would describe him as being off to a pretty good start.
Sam, one last thing. Our poll question of the day was, who was the bigger star of the weekend? You got a minute and a half here. Is it Trey Alexander or was it Keisei Tominaga?
Well, I mean, shoot. Trey. So listen, like Keisei is a joy to watch. He does so many fun things on the court. And if Nebraska were better, he would be, a story all the time. Creighton's playing more important games, and Trey Alexander was the reason they won that game. And so Creighton is rounding into the team that I think they hoped it'd be, with maybe the exception they'd like to have a little bit more production from their bench. And Trey Alexander is becoming. Of all the players on that team, you're like, the guy's going to play in the NBA for 10 years. Trey's the one. He does this stuff that, the thing that I love about Trey's game is when he catches the ball, he throws it right back to Nembhard. Like, he resets the play, and he understands that stuff about the game, and that's part of why I like him. He's a very, very good player for Creighton.
Right. We appreciate it, Sam. Thanks so much for your time, as you always give us on Monday. We appreciate you.
All right.
You don't know how Trey Alexander's important in that team? Guard's the best player. He shoots the technicals, and he gets double-digit shots up a game.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of people wouldn't say he's the best player. We'll keep talking next.
Most important.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back to the show. Do you guys want to make DB happy at all?
No.
888-638-4876 if you'd like to give him a call to talk NBA. That'd make DB very, very happy. It's Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. And, you know, DB, I'll play into your wheelhouse for a little bit as much as I can. The big news coming out of the weekend in the NBA was the Kyrie Irving trade to the Mavericks. And as much as people want to knock Kyrie for his life outside of basketball, and we kind of talked about this a little bit with Bobby Hull last week.
Enigmatic, maybe.
Kyrie makes that Mavericks team probably the best backcourt in the West.
If they can play together.
Assuming they can play together.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a guy that leads the league in ISO minutes.
Kyrie,
Luka Doncic.
Kyrie, though, I mean, even in Brooklyn on the back end of this season, was starting to play away from the ball more and better, you would say. But you have Luka, who averages, like 33 a game? You have Kyrie that averages 27 a game. I mean, just right there, with everything that you gave up, you're the Mavericks, you give away picks, you give away players, like, you good with Kyrie Irving for the rest of the year? I think you say, hey, this right now could give us a chance to actually come out of the Western Conference.
Yeah, and I don't think Dinwiddie enjoyed being in Dallas. If he could have stayed, I don't think he wanted to leave Brooklyn the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think getting him back, I think, was big, plus the pick. And I kind of like the Nets roster too.
Really? You think they're going to be able to say, hey, KD, just be patient, man?
No, because I actually think that roster, man, and I know you're not an NBA guy, but that roster is not bad. You're going to go with Dinwiddie, Joe Harris, Durant, Ben Simmons, and probably Nick Claxton.
Ben Simmons? You mean Bum Simmons?
That's not bad, though.
I don't know how much longer KD wants to play with Ben Simmons.
Well, Ben, I just don't. I think it's almost impossible to have a Ben Simmons and a Kyrie Irving on the same team over an extended period of time anyway.
Is that because one can shoot threes and the other
No,
can't?
I think it's more the psychological stuff, the emotional stuff. I don't know. But if I'll be curious to see, all those isolations that Luka runs, because it's clear that's not playoff winning basketball. It's good regular season basketball, but it's not going to win you anything in the playoffs. So maybe, well, obviously they're building for the playoffs, but they can score the basketball.
What's Kyrie's contract like?
So he's going to be a rental because he wanted the max. He wanted the what is it, 38 mil. So I think Brooklyn wouldn't give him the long.
Well, Andy wanted to be traded.
So I think anybody that got him knew that this was a rental.
Could you sign him for 2 more years though?
I don't think he'll take a 2-year deal.
If they won the title this year, would he take 2 years?
It'd have to be like 282 though. So you'd have to make him a $40 million guy.
Oh, no thanks.
I
don't know if Kyrie's worth that headache. Because right now you're gambling. You don't know what he's going to be like in Dallas. Maybe in 6 months you're able to say like, hey, we got a good feel on this guy.
In my former life, I got into a knockdown, drag out discussion. Wasn't an argument. Because Severe called him a sociopath. Do you remember that, Shane?
Tough word.
And I
remember.
And I go, you can't use that word, sociopath. And he said, hey, it's what my wife does. It's her job. And of course, he went to the Google it. What is the definition of a sociopath? I was so mad at him. But then when he read me the definition, I was like,
so a sociopath is used to describe what a mental health professional would diagnose as antisocial personality disorder, which is a mental disorder in which a person consistently shows no regard for right and wrong and ignores the rights and feelings of others.
Yeah. And I remember when he read me that, it stopped me dead in my tracks. I went from super soapboxy to, I was like, hey, you can't say that. And
were you thinking he was meaning psychopath?
No, it just sounded harsh.
Yeah, calling somebody a sociopath is harsh.
So,
but normally it's warranted when somebody uses that.
But he had been so good. And I know he went to those guys and was like, hey, listen, all right, I've held up my end of the bargain for the last month. Can I have a long-term deal now? And they're probably like, are you serious? No. And he's like, oh, okay, then move me. And I don't think they wanted to be on the hook for him long-term anyway.
Does any team at this point?
I don't know. I mean, he's making almost 40 mil now.
Yeah.
He's 38 million a year.
What would it be like to have $38 million? What would you do with 38 million?
I
would start your boys' home.
Yes, no question. I would still do media, but I would definitely start a group home, but very small, only like 12,
let's see
12 to 15.
Let's see how good of a guy Kyrie is. How about you give DB your $38 million salary? Let's see how good you can be.
Right there.
No, you know what I would do?
Would you call it Kyrie's home?
No.
He said, I'll give you $38 million to start this boys' home, but you have to name it after me.
No, you know what else I would do? I would give about $3 million.
You just instantly said,
to Omaha to see if I could talk Omaha, the Mavs, into starting wrestling, bringing wrestling back.
Omaha or Dallas?
No, Omaha.
Oh,
the Mavericks.
I didn't know which Mavericks we were still talking about.
Oh, that's what I would do. I'd say, hey, yo, Adrian, here's some seed money. I just gladly give it one lump sum.
Hey,
could you please think about starting wrestling?
Just think about for $3 million.
Well, that would be a good thought.
I was going to say, I mean,
because I don't
give
know.
Me $3 million, I'd be like, yeah, I'll think about it. And then what if I just?
Because I don't know about Title IX and needing to add. Would they need to add another sport or how like the logistics? But I'm just thinking training facility. Then I would go to a couple of the other folks that love wrestling. I would go knock on Rotella's door and I'd say, hey, let's do a matching thing. Or I don't know. I would still work though.
I feel like you'd have to. All those people that say, "Hey, I'd win the lottery. I'd love not to work or do my job." I mean, you'd go insane.
I scrolled through some show on Netflix. This literally, I'm not kidding you. It's like 2 a.m. on Saturday morning. I couldn't sleep for whatever the reason. And there was this show I just click on the info, and it was about some lady that won the lottery, but ended up finding like the bottom of the bottle and had these relationship issues with her son. And I think if I remember right, she only won. This was a long time ago. I think she only won like 192,000.
That was the Netflix show. I read the description of that the other day.
So was that Netflix?
192,000?
Yeah, I think it was Netflix.
It was one of them.
One of them, yeah.
What are the odds we both read that?
Yeah. And
Well, Shane, remember what Shane was doing over the weekend? He said he enjoyed a cold brew, probably an Acres Ale, and then he turned on the TV and was like, "I'm gonna chill."
You gave him the mix and match case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shane,
we only gave him all the great IPAs.
Shane, which one did you like?
Well, I liked the Dear Old Nebraska.
Yeah, Dear Old Nebraska.
That was
that's a good one.
everybody's
That's
favorite.
a good one. That's zip line right there.
The copper one was okay.
Mosman wants that.
The copper one was good.
The one that I have left, I don't have it left anymore. It's gone.
You had 2 beers in a weekend?
I'm sorry.
Were you tipsy?
Wow. I'm dead serious.
I mean, that's half his weight.
Did you drink 2 beers in a sitting?
Yeah. I mean, I just had those 2, so I was good.
So if your body's made up of 80% of water and you put 2 beers into your body, Shane, like how much would that like equal your oceans on your inside?
Wow.
You know what I was?
Oh, I'm so happy! I'm so happy! This is the best day of my life!
Oh,
thank you, Steve Carell.
I'm still.
You know what it wasn't?
What?
It sounds like a huge waste of time.
You enjoyed that.
I was like,
you guys had a good weekend. Shane had 2 beers, and you celebrated your birthday for 3 days.
I was
had 2, and I had 42.
in the 2 beers.
Did you say 42? Did you really?
No, I don't even think I did. I had a beer on Friday.
You started on Thursday though, didn't you?
Drinking?
Yeah.
Then get like carried over to the show Friday morning.
Well, the show, don't I remember you like just being okay feeling okay Friday morning? So you didn't go out Thursday?
No, I don't go out during the week.
Just Friday, Saturday.
Friday night.
Yeah.
We went to.
There were some funny stories. Those should remain.
We went to DJ's dugout and had the purple pucker.
Yeah.
And then we went to the casino. And then Saturday we did the golf simulator bar. Went out to eat at Osaka, and we went to Rhythm's Lounge.
A couple of spots.
And some other spots too.
You're a bad boy.
Oh yeah. Well, because I stayed out way too late.
Way too late.
Let's talk to Mike Tanier next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
You've thrown touchdown passes in Vegas before. You've been on fire. Have you ever been that hot in Las Vegas?
Not that hot. It's probably why I'm going somewhere else.
Hey, everybody else. Hey, man, it's real simple. How do you want to be remembered? This team, this group right here, at home. We put the work in, let's finish.
It's Super Bowl week, and during this week, we are going to talk to a lot of people that cover the big game. It's Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers, and one of the best, one of our good friends is Mike Tanier, senior analyst for Football Outsiders. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, and greetings from the shadow of the Footprint Center here in Phoenix, Arizona.
Wow. You know what? I'm kind of feeling a little Phoenixy this morning. It's going to be 49, maybe 50 degrees.
It's supposed to be all week.
Omaha today, Mike. How about that? Baby steps.
Well, the baby steps. It's actually very pretty right here. I think it's going up to 70 degrees.
Hey, Mike, this weekend with the Pro Bowl, with flag football going on and everything, do you like it? Because I actually had some fun watching the flag football game.
You know, I'm going to admit I didn't see any of it. I was on a plane, and then I was getting checked in, et cetera, et cetera. More power to you. I don't think I'm the target audience. I'm not sure who is the target audience.
Yeah, I am a child.
But I'll tell you the truth. I was watching the guys throw the balloons earlier in the week, and I like the idea of NFL players acting like 6-year-olds and playing the kindergarten games. So more things like that. Pin the tail on the donkey. Let's go all the way with it.
Yes, the Pro Olympics. Let me ask him. Please ask
Go
him.
ahead.
Mike, I had a great idea last week.
So self-proclaimed, by the way.
So I said, for the Pro Bowl, instead of doing like an actual game like that, let's have a Pro Olympics where we have the offensive linemen have like a food eating contest. We have the defensive line run the 4x100 meter relay. We have the quarterbacks play dodgeball, which dodgeball was featured. And then we have the what did I have the kickers doing?
I can't remember.
I have the kickers doing
kickball.
Kickball. Yeah, kickball home run derby.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it was. And then I said gambling should be encouraged within the play. Like if the NFL ever would allow it for gambling to be encouraged for the players. And then you have a fan vote going on where you have, a bunch of people like online voting for how outcomes are going to be and certain props. And whoever wins the fan vote gets an all expenses paid trip to the Super Bowl. What do you think?
Those are a lot of great ideas. I love the gambling built into it because I think the players on the side would just start dropping major bets on each other. Who could hit the golf ball the farthest, which I know they did that, and some of these other things. I love it. By the way, the kicker should just do trivia. The kicker should play Jeopardy.
But I do.
Ken Jennings out there. Just go all the way.
Aaron Rodgers hosting it.
But let me ask you something in all seriousness, though, because on the heels of watching the NHL and the skills competition and how they do it, and jerseys aside, I love the NHL All-Star break because of the skills competition. But why do you think it's eluded the NFL for so long on how to get this right, if at all?
In the NBA, if guys are out there dunking and goofing off, it's fun. In hockey, you can kind of play at 3/4 speed and do these shooting contests and stuff like that. It's fun. In baseball, the home run derby is fun. In football, only football is fun. Everything else looks like it's super contrived, or it looks like a practice drill. So it's, unless they're playing 100% and trying to clobber each other on the field, it looks like 7-7 in practice. And that's the trick there. And also, one more thing is you can't do it in mid-season. If you could do it in mid-season, people would still be hungry for it. When you have to do it at the end of the season, it's a different mentality. We're like, please bring on the Super Bowl. I don't care about this.
Mike, I think leading up to the Super Bowl, people were worried about the narratives being shoved down your throat, whether that's the Kelsey brothers, whether that's Jalen Hurts versus Patrick Mahomes. But in hindsight, I don't really think I think we were too worried. I don't think it's kind of been overdone, but I was interested to gauge what you thought so far, because we have a listener question that I'll follow up with next in regards to Kelsey and Jason. But in regards to the Super Bowl, do you think any narratives or storylines are being shoved down our throats?
Just wait. Just wait. In a couple of hours, we're going to be over there in the Footprint Center. We're going to be interviewing these players. And every dumb Jason, Travis, Kelsey brother question is going to be asked. And Mahomes is going to be asked about his ankle 6 million times. And all the terrible angles will come out. What often happens is during that first week is there's other sports to talk about. I think everybody takes a deep breath. Everyone in the NFL media takes a deep breath. We cover the Senior Bowl. We do other stuff. This is where it comes crystallized, and all we are going to be talking about this game. And I'm glad you aren't sick of these storylines now, because about 4 days you will be.
If you're Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes in particular, I think it was easy against the Bengals, because I truly don't think a lot of people thought they were going to win that football game. When you're looking at the Eagles being the favorite, I think people make it more about the complete team. When you look at Kansas City's mentality going into this one, where would you start with your focus?
Well, I would say I don't think the Chiefs thought there was anything easy about the Bengals, because the Bengals keep beating them going into that game. So they had to have a pretty tough mentality going in. And there are two elements for the Chiefs that they have to look at. One is their offensive line. I consider it a good, not great offensive line. It's not the offensive line that got smoked by the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, but it's still not elite. And it's going against a pass rush that generated 70 sacks in the regular season. That's your point of concern, number one. A point of concern, number two, is a secondary full of rookie cornerbacks who have not been playing like rookies lately, but were playing like rookies in October, and they're going up against A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. So on a matchup-by-matchup basis, the Chiefs have work to do, and they know it. And that should keep them focused. It's not about, legacies or dynasties or things like that. It's about making sure some of these rookies don't get toasted, and that's going to keep them very busy this week.
Mike, our listener question, as the Kelsey brother storyline has developed, our listener has consistently heard that Travis is no doubt a Hall of Famer, but Jason is not. Can you explain how a 5-time first-team All-Pro and a 6-time Pro Bowler isn't even consideration? Would you say that it's just more difficult for a lineman to do it?
I think that's inaccurate. I think that's very inaccurate. And I cover the Hall of Fame pretty closely. I speak to Hall of Fame voters all the time. I think both brothers are Hall of Famers. I would say Travis probably does have the stronger case overall, because he's climbing the all-time lists of postseason receptions, yards, all-time tight end records. But Jason Kelsey's a Hall of Famer. He's going to his second Super Bowl, and he is the most recognizable continuous face for this Eagles team over the last decade, through these ups and downs, even through the Chip Kelly era. He's got the Pro Bowls. He's got the All-Pro appearances. And you have things like, in Philadelphia in particular, him dancing around like a mummer on the Art Museum steps, after the Super Bowl. That's the kind of thing where, when you're debating a Hall of Famer, you're going to put that video on and say, okay, any questions? This guy is a superstar. This is a superstar center. There are very few superstar centers in history. Kelsey is one of them. And I think that's going to propel him, among all of his other accomplishments, into the Hall of Fame.
Mike, let me ask you, if you're get away from Super Bowl here just for a second, because I've kind of scratched my head, right? Kellen Moore obviously going to the Chargers, left the door open for Brian Schottenheimer. And I'm looking at the resumes and did some digging, actually, and I'm trying to figure out, not how he gets jobs, right? Because I get it in the NFL, right? And familiar names and recycled. But what is it that you think McCarthy sees or Dallas's organization sees with where Dak is in terms of his ascent or plateau for some Cowboy fans and bringing in Schottenheimer?
I have no idea. I just think in McCarthy's case, he wants somebody who knows can run the offense completely, run practices, installations, meetings completely, and he can be hands-off. So he was looking for a super experienced head. He got that experienced super head in Brian Schottenheimer. X's and O's, I've got no concept of how this makes any sense or how this helps Dak Prescott.
Unbelievable.
But like you said, this is how NFL hirings go. You got a friend who's a friend who's a friend. You golf together, whatever. You get the job. I don't want to denigrate Brian Schottenheimer to that level, but that's what this feels like right now. You got an experienced head who you know and you trust, and it's not about X's, O's, or any particular player's development.
Mike, as we head toward the Super Bowl, I think what a lot of people gravitate to is the storyline of who's going to be that surprise player, the one that either catches like the big touchdown or has like a big performance, the unsung hero. Who do you think is going to be that?
It would wind up being one of those rookie cornerbacks, and I'm going to list them out right now: Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, and the best of the bunch, I think, Trent McDuffie. If the Chiefs get a victory in this game, one of those guys made a big play, whether it was an interception or a pass breakup in the end zone. And when those guys step up, that's going to be the difference maker for the Kansas City Chiefs.
If you had to not, I won't ask you to pick a winner unless you want to, but outside of turnovers and quarterback play, give me an X factor for you.
I would say short yardage success. Eagles, of course, have that push sneak. It's one of the most effective plays in the NFL. It's changing the NFL where Jalen Hurts gets shoved for 1 yard. The Chiefs don't do that. Patrick Mahomes got hurt on a sneak a couple of years ago. They don't run that play. You'll see them do all kind of goofy stuff with like a tight end running their sneak. You'll see all these wacky shovel passes and things like that on short yardage. If the Chiefs can convert on those, that's something that's going to help them sustain drives and be more than just the Mahomes and Kelsey show. If they can't and they're getting eaten up by the Eagles on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 on the sneak, it's going to be a long evening for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Mike, we appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much, and enjoy Super Bowl week.
Enjoy the row.
You got it. Take care. Enjoy Super Bowl week, guys.
Hey, thank you. That is Mike Tanier, and we thank you for joining us out there as well. If you're itching for more, if you want some more of Damon and Andrew, head over to your favorite podcast app and check out Morning Dump and Benning Bites. But until tomorrow for Coffee and Cream, we'll see you then.